Hey everybody, it's Leslie Tagorda, your brand designer and astrologer here today to talk all about lunar nodes. I had an experience earlier this week that kind of shook me up and it really got me thinking, am I aligned to my lunar nodes? So even if you don't know what your lunar nodes are or curious about how to integrate the information sitting in your lunar nodes in your business so that you can get unstuck from the past and reach towards your potential, listen on. Of course, I'll also be talking about the astrology of the upcoming week and a little bit about the astrology that's coming up for September because, oh my gosh, do we have a doozy? And I'm here to help you. Aloha and welcome to The Savvy Luminary, an astrology podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Leslie Tagorda. I'm an Aquarius boss woman, a brand designer, business astrologer, and overall business navigator, helping you reach your highest potential using astrology. You're not going to find any fear-mongering here. I'm going to teach you how to use astrology as an empowering tool that helps you believe and achieve your greatest gift. Before we jump into the episode, I'd love to share a review that I received from Apple Podcasts. Elle Klein says, learning about my communication style has had a major and immediate impact, reducing the amount of energy I spend stressing about being out there, intense, or taken the wrong way, which ties into learning about who my ideal client is according to my natal chart. I mean, this is pure gold for peace of mind and personal comfort in developing your communication, surpassing fears and limits. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing your experience with this podcast as well as your one-on-one Astro Brand session with me. You know, if you love this podcast, I hope you consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher because each rating and review helps elevate this podcast so it gets seen and discovered by more people across the world. So earlier this week, I was kind of having like this inner struggle. Now, it kind of felt a little bit like of a crisis, but not exactly like super intense, like a Pluto or a Saturn transit. It was much more subtle, but it was just really definitely this kind of nagging feeling, right? Of this inner shift of, am I really on my right path? Like, I feel like I'm on my right path, but am I really approaching it in the right way? Like, am I in the right gear? Am I driving the right vehicle? Like, what's going on? So, of course, I peeked at my chart to see what the heck was going on. And oh my goodness, I had quite the surprise that I completely forgot about. So basically, when I took a look at my chart, I was having an astrological awakening of sorts. I was experiencing my nodal inverse. Now, I'll be talking more about the lunar nodes because I know there's a bunch of us who don't even know what that is, but the nodal inverse is when your natal lunar nodes, those are like anytime you have the word natal, the natal means that the energies that you were born with, your natural energies, meet the current transiting nodes, okay? But this time in reverse, right? So again, that's called a nodal inverse or a nodal reverse. Basically, it's like when your transiting north node meets your natal south node. And because the nodes exist in pairs, they are in polar opposites. We always have our north node or our true node and our south node. They sit on opposite ends of your zodiac. And the north node basically represents where you're supposed to be going, and the south node represents your past and all of the past patterns that you can sometimes get stuck in, right? And so when you have a nodal inverse, like what happened to me, this happens about every 19 years and starting at the age of 8, right? And so 46 years old and right on time, our north node that's currently in 26 degrees of Gemini is meeting exactly my south node, which is at 26 of Gemini. So what does this nodal inverse mean, right? Or the nodal reverse. So what this means is that, and like how I've been feeling already, is it's really asking me like, hey, are you on your right path? Well, yes, you are on your right path, but are you really approaching it the right way, right? So if I was mentioning earlier that our north node is where our soul wants to go, right? But it's being met up with the transiting south node, it's like saying, wait, okay, you're headed in the right direction, but something is kind of off. Let's take a look at what's going on, right? Of course, I didn't need astrology to tell me what was already going on in my inner life. I really felt it. I felt like I was doing too much. I was providing offers in my business that just didn't really nourish and make me feel alive. And I feel like there's just been this kind of this tension that just didn't need to be there, because right now I'm in this place in my life that I'm always looking for, how do I make things easier? How do I make things in more flow? So, but when I looked at my astrology, and I saw that this nodal inverse was happening for me. So if you're 46 years old, or, 46 minus 19, you might be having this kind of feeling as well. Again, it's more subtle, it's more inner. It's not like these outward experiences happening to you, right? So when I looked at my astrology, just looking at that nodal inverse gave it so much meaning. It helped me ask the questions that I needed to understand and lead with curiosity, so I could then make the next direction, make the next choice in my life and in my business, right? So, like I mentioned, when you're having a nodal inverse, you're asking yourself questions like, am I still on the right path? And if you are on the right path, am I going in the right way? Right? So, because I personally have my south node, the past patterns that I can get stuck in Gemini, which is about, when we think about the past patterns, we're looking at the shadow versions of Gemini. So, shadow things of Gemini are like overthinking, right? Talking too much. Who else is going to talk on this podcast? So, forgive me here. Um, in my first house of self and identity and leadership and my branding, right? My south node is there. So with my south node in Gemini at 26 degrees, it happens to be in my first house of identity, of self, of leadership, of branding, right? I'm supposed to let go of past patterns of overthinking, Gemini, and committing to plans that don't fit me and going it all alone. Can you see how that is South Node patterns, Gemini, first house? And, another side note, I have Saturn right on top of my South Node. So again, committing, to things that, overcommitting to things and not being able to pivot quickly when things are stopping to fit, right? I'm supposed to let all of those things go with the South Node. And in my North Node, because my North Node now is in Sagittarius in the 7th house, I'm meant to now expand my vision and my belief and working within a community in partnership, right? It's in partnership that my life comes together. So this nodal inverse was saying, okay, you're doing some of these things, but not all of these things. So let's reassess, and how can you break away from some of the past patterns that you're falling into while staying on your path so you can bring more ease in work and life. All right, I know that's a lot. Now, on the other hand, instead of a nodal reverse, if you have a nodal return, a nodal return would mean the transiting north node is meeting your natal north node and south node, right? So that would mean that if you were having your nodal return right now, you would have your north node in Gemini, right? So in this lifetime, you're moving towards the pattern of creating dialogue, thinking about things and, learning and teaching, right? So I'm sharing this story, I'm opening up this story today's episode because the North Node and the South Node have so much information in them as to where we're supposed to grow, where we're supposed to reach our potential. And because all of you are business owners here, or most of you are business owners or are aspiring business owners or want to work for yourself and call the shots somehow using astrology, the North Node and the South Node can really help direct you in making better decisions that are going to help elevate your soul's purpose in this lifetime, because your business is an extension of your solar consciousness. Okay, gosh, I hope you're with me on that story because I know it's kind of going back and forth trying to explain the nodes without having any visuals. I'll post a screenshot of my chart so you can see where the nodes are. To get a visual of it, you can always find that screenshot in thesavvyluminary.com and take a look at the show notes for today's episode 32. All right, so what the heck are the lunar nodes? So I mentioned briefly earlier that the lunar nodes are calculations. They are calculations of where the sun's elliptical, meaning the path, the almost circular path that the sun travels, and the moon's elliptical, the circular path that the moon travels from the perspective of Earth, right? Because in astrology, in Western astrology, we are Earth-centric, even though the sun is the center of the universe, right? So where these two ellipticals, these paths in the sky cross with the sun and the moon are called the nodes. We have the North Node and the South Node. And in astrology, they traditionally travel backwards. Sometimes they go forward, but their overall direction is that they look like they're going backwards in the sky. So right now, as I'm recording this at the end of August, we have the collective transiting North Node in Gemini right now at 26 degrees, and we have the transiting South Node in Sagittarius. Again, all of these nodes, they exist in polarities, so they will always be at the same degree, but within the opposite zodiac signs. So in life astrology, just like astrology in general, the North Node, it's sometimes called the true node. In Vedic astrology, it's also called the dragon's head, right? The North Node is where we want to go in this lifetime, where our soul wants to expand, where it wants to pick up life lessons, where it wants to express itself, right? And so if you believe in past lives, right, the nodes are very important. Or rather not past lives, but like multiple lives, right? Because like we're just in one life, we're going to have lives in the future, we're going to have lives in the past. And our South Node represents our past patterns, all the experiences that we picked up in past lives that, we're really good at. It's very natural to us. We can fall back on these because we've had lifetimes of processing this information. So it's really easy to get stuck there. Now, the South Node is not to be like, hey, we're just going to throw away everything in the South Node. We want to use the South Node because we know that we can always fall back on those skills and those experiences because we've experienced them many, many lifetimes. So in our businesses and our brands, we look at our nodes, our North Node and our South Node, to really understand and direct our next offering, direct our next pivot, direct our next action in our business so that it's more in alignment with what our soul wants. Using our North Node, we get to really discern and make choices that not only will feed our business, but will also feed our soul. It really helps us make decisions that will keep moving things forward and catch us from falling on past patterns that no longer serve us. So when we look at our nodes, yes, we are looking at any transits that may be happening, specifically the nodal return and the nodal inverse that I was mentioning, right? Those are subtle transits in our lifetime that, spend a couple of weeks where you're kind of transitioning and you're realigning to your soul's intention. Definitely, I'll repeat that, soul's intention, right? Where your soul wants to go. But to learn more information about your current lifetime, looking at your natal nodes, remember that's the nodes that you were born with, you want to assess them by looking at the zodiac sign, because that will tell you that the energy that wants to come through the forward direction and your past patterns represented by the nodes. You also want to look at the placement by house, because that shows you what field of life experience these nodes want to express themselves. And if you have any planets that are on 1 or 2 degrees near either of your nodes, this will give you even further information. So let's start there actually. So if you look at your north node and your south node in your chart, some computer programs, some sites will only show the north node, but because I mentioned that the nodes exist in polarities, you will see you can create your south node by looking across the chart at the exact same degree in the polar opposite sign, right? So when you look at your north node and your south node, look to see if you have any planets near them. If you have planets near your south node, these represent energies and expertise that you bring into this lifetime. So for example, I mentioned earlier that I have Saturn 1 degree from my south node. So that tells me that I have past patterns and experiences based on Saturn that I bring with me into this life, right? If we look at some of the shadow signs of Saturn, we can look at self-doubt and discipline and kind of those heavy Saturnian themes that sometimes we get really bogged down by. Or we can look at it from this empowering way that Saturn brings in responsibility and commitment and discipline. And you know what? I have all of those very strong in my first house. And so now I know that this wasn't just something that I'm meant to experience this in this lifetime, but I actually, by proxy, by position to the south node, have brought all of this in with me to give me the discipline, to give me the responsibility to succeed, to be a leader in this lifetime, right? That I can always fall back on it because I've experienced it before many, many lifetimes by the south node. Now, my north node, I don't have any planets personally next to my north node, but if you have planets next to your north node, that also informs you of the energies that you're supposed to cultivate in this lifetime. It adds to the energies and the potentialities that you are meant to stretch into. So if we're going to be looking at the nodes by sign, kind of understanding the archetypes that we need to bring into that energies of our stretch energy or falling into our past pattern energy, we can look at these planets or these nodes by polarities, right? So if we look at the Aries Libra polarity, right, those two zodiacs exist together. They are on polar opposites. Aries represents the me, represents the pioneer, the trailblazer, and Libra represents the we, the connector, the peaceful, friendly, beautiful archetype, right? So if you have your north node in the Aries, right, you're going to have your south node in Libra, and vice versa. If you have your south node in Aries, or you'll have your north node in Libra. Right? And so when you look at the Aries Libra polarity, if you have your nodes there, you're going to be assessing the me, the trailblazer, the pioneer archetype versus the connected archetype, the peaceful archetype. If you have now the second polarity, we're going to shift a little bit. For the Taurus Scorpio archetype, we're looking at the form and the physical security and worthiness purpose that Taurus embodies with the ability to heal and transform and share resources in Scorpio. Those two things are in play with your nodes. Now, if your nodes exist in the Gemini Sagittarius that we were talking about, right? With Gemini, we're looking at information. We're looking at learning and teaching, as well as in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about learning and teaching, but now it's not necessarily just from information, from pure data. It's from inspiration and synthesizing a lot of diverse information, right? So that would be the Sagittarius Gemini polarity. Now, if you have your nodes in Cancer and Capricorn, you are playing with the nurture from Cancer versus structure from Capricorn. We can also look at this as like our private home life versus our public career life. Right? I also look at it with the roots in order to really get a solid emotional foundation versus the need to rise and be visible in a public sphere. So if you have your nodes in the Leo Aquarius archetype, we're looking at passion versus innovation, right? Are you a heartfelt leader versus an innovative, a little bit of a rebel without a cause, right? You're playing with those two archetypes. And lastly, if your nodes exist in the Virgo Pisces archetype, you're playing with the themes of order and practicality and efficiency, clarity in Virgo, the wellness, versus the infinite flow and relaxation and connection to divine in Pisces. Right? So we're looking at our nodes from these polarities of understanding these polarities always work together. So we embody both of these energies, right? But if wherever you have your north node is where you're supposed to stretch and grow into, and wherever you have your south node is where you can fall back on and know that you have the experience and expertise to help you, but you don't want to stay stuck there. So again, the 6 polarities we would have would be either Aries and Libra polarity, Taurus Scorpio polarity, Gemini Sagittarius polarity, Cancer Capricorn polarity, Leo Aquarius polarity, and then Virgo Pisces polarity. So understand the energies by the zodiac archetypes that want to come through with your north and south nodes. The other thing that you want to consider besides the zodiac of your nodes is the house placement, because this will give you further information as to where these energies want to express itself. Again, these house placements will exist in polarities, right? So we're going to have like the 1st and 7th house, 2nd and 8th house, 3rd and 9th house, so forth. So if your nodes are in the 1st and the 7th house, similar to the Aries Libra archetype, right? We're looking at, you're playing with, are you meant to lead, be a loner, an initiator, and a lone trailblazer, versus are you supposed to co-create and partner and collaborate, right? Because the 1st house represents being a leader and being the self, and the 7th house represents partnerships, committed partnerships, whether this is your ideal customers or your romantic partner, but it's working in collaboration. Now, if your nodes are in the 2nd and 8th house, the 2nd house is about earning and all of your physical resources. It's about bringing your wealth together. And the 8th house now is about sharing that wealth or leveraging other people's wealth in order to maximize. Now, if your nodes are in the 3rd house, 9th house polarity, we are looking at learning information from other like-minded people and gathering all kinds of data. And in the ninth house now, it's about teaching and sharing this information with the wider world. Now with the fourth and 10th house, you're playing with like your private life and your public life, right? Your family life and your career, professional life, right? These two things are connected. So look at your node placement there. Now, if you have your nodes in the 5th and the 11th house, we're looking at your ability to create. In the 5th house, we're looking about play and fun and passion in the forms of creation. And in the 11th house, now we're looking at social impact and impact for the community and impact and creation for all of humanity and the future. And so now if you have your nodes in the 6th and the 12th house, we're looking at your routine and your wholeness and your wellness, your day-to-day operations versus your ability to be in the ultimate flow and relaxing and bringing things with ease instead of like the grind. So how do you exactly use this now in your business, right? Would be like a really practical application? If you listen to some of my past episodes about how to use your sun sign in your brand, as well as how to use your moon sign in your brand, now we have another layer about using your nodes in your brand, right? The sun sign, as we talked about before, is a place where our expertise and our natural talents and our superpowers exist, where we just create it and we radiate this creativity. And so we are meant to create opportunities that allow us to express our radiant creativity. Whereas our moon sign represents our feelings and emotions and how we want to be acknowledged. Our moon sign also is one of the pieces in our chart that are connected to the past. I instinctively know how to do these things, similar to the south node, right? Your moon, your south node, all of these are karmic past elements that just are so natural and so instinctive for you. It comes from your ancestors, it comes from your mom, it comes from your past life. It's so easy to just kind of keep on hammering those things over and over and over again. Well, yes, you want to fall back on them, you want to bring that experience in, but we are here to grow. We are here to move forward. We are here to stretch into our potential that is represented by our North Node. Your rising sign is also one of these forward facing elements, the elements that you're supposed to lead by. So your rising sign, your sun sign, your North Node may feel like a little bit of stretch. It may feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so you're supposed to look to your North Node and your sun sign and your rising sign to discern where you're supposed to move forward in your brand. So some of the questions that I get a lot is like, am I supposed to create a course? Am I supposed to teach? Am I supposed to, offer one-on-one services or create a mastermind or a group? How am I supposed to scale these things? What am I supposed to do next? We all have those questions going through our head. And sometimes it's just through experimentation, right? That we pick and choose and we pivot and we move forward. But we can actually make some informed decisions based on our North Node, as well as our sun sign, as well as our rising sign. So let me give you an example. I created Luminary Rising back in May, and it was an answer to a 16-week cohort that I had previously run 4 times called Crystallize. In the Crystallize cohort, I built a training library of branding using one's astrology, and I had run it for 16 weeks, running cohorts through it, doing group coaching, doing teaching, having all of this library of training videos. And I noticed that people needed to take a little bit of a longer time going through all the programs. So I evolved Crystallize into luminary rising. You know, I didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? I kept the core training, but now I expanded it so that it would take a year long to go through all of the trainings. And each month we would focus on one part of the Astro Brand framework, because I see that sometimes people need some time to grow into their brand. That change doesn't always happen instantly. So I built Luminary Rising around my original crystallized Astro Brand framework and that training, and built a membership around it. I was coming online and giving group coaching every couple of weeks, and I built a Facebook community, and I was sending weekly emails and doing all of these things. And even though I love the people in my community, this way of delivering just was not feeding me. I saw the writing on the wall for a couple of months, but because it was bringing in income, you know, people were paying to be part of the group, and I love the people, and you know, some people were getting great results and some people weren't showing up, and you know, everything in between. And that's just how it is when you create these kinds of group dynamics, you know, nothing wrong with that. And it was just getting kind of to this place where, like, am I on the right path? I'm not going to throw out my crystallized brand framework, right? My Astro Brand framework. That is something that is my proprietary information. I love that. But is this the best way to share it with others, right? So when I looked at my nodal reverse, my nodal inverse that I talked about in the beginning, I was like, this is that feeling, right? This is the feeling, like, am I creating something in partnership, in collaboration? Because I have my North Node in the 7th house. No, I'm not. Right now, I'm here running this thing by myself, and it just wasn't feeding me. The other question I asked myself, because my North Node is in Sagittarius, right? Am I providing too much information, or am I providing inspiration? Well, I heard the feedback that there was just too much information in my training. You know, like, I want everybody to know everything. So I'm like providing all this information, but we live in this age where there's just too much information. People want short, quick inspiration and ahas. Gotcha. Heard it loud and clear. So I use this information, knowing my nodes, knowing my nodes, to inform me on what to do next. And what to do next is to close down Luminary Rising and focus on my one-on-one work. One-on-one work is represented in the 7th house of partnerships, of committed partnerships. I love working one-on-one. I love creating close relationships and connectedness and really getting into people's businesses. Might I put that together, the membership again? Possibly, but probably in collaboration with a couple of other brand and spiritual leaders. So for you, your question is to look at your offerings and to see what is really bringing you joy, what is really nourishing you, what is really stretching you in the right direction. Or are you getting trapped by over delivering with all of your own past patterns as represented by the South Node? So in my Facebook community, The Savvy Luminary, if you're not already a member, hop on over to the free Facebook group and search for us, The Savvy Luminary. I posed the question about lunar nodes in your brand and business. And my goodness, I got a lot of questions. So Nikki asks, how do we stop falling back on the safety and familiarity of the South Node? How do you bring in more of the North Node into your daily work, especially if you don't feel like it's something you want to do? So that is a really great question. I wish I had a better answer for you, Nikki. The thing is that it's not this thing of like push and willpower. It's just knowing that, is it going to serve you to just stay in that familiarity of your South Node? What could happen if you just stretch a little bit further and go into your North Node? You know, your North Node isn't something that is like completely brand new for you, okay? Your North Node, because by polarity, is still connected to your South Node. So it should be just a little stretch. So get really excited about the possibilities that can and will present itself as you begin to stretch yourself into the North Node. At this point, it's just you deciding and committing that you're going to stretch yourself and move a little more and more into your North Node day to day. Joanna asks, how do I use my own nodal energy to help my clients with theirs? Wow, that's such a great question, right? What I'm hearing for you, Johanna, is for you to recognize and acknowledge your nodal energies, to really acknowledge your past energies and to accept them as your expertise and to accept them as gifts that you've brought into this lifetime. And with your North Node, for you to really stretch. So, what this means when you're going to be helping your clients, right, is that you're pushing yourself into your own North Node energy. You're stretching and you're reaching your highest potential. Your clients will just be energized by you living your life. Now, if your clients, for whatever reason, get frustrated with you for, for stretching into these new arrays of possibilities, now you just need to ask yourself, are these the clients that you are truly meant to serve? Because as we expand, we also are meant to serve those that are also on that journey of expansion and forward movement. Elisa asks, how do you embody the qualities and energies of the sign the node is in and the best ways to translate it on a branding level? You probably already are expressing your nodal energies. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the things is to just really get awareness of what these nodal energies are, right? Of where you're meant to stretch. Like, for example, for me, with my Sagittarius North Node, I'm familiar with the Sagittarius energy. I have my moon in Sagittarius while it's not near my North Node. But having my North Node in the seventh house and partnerships, that's really a stretch for me. I mean, to be honest, I probably mentioned this before. I'm so used to doing things alone. Obviously, I don't do things alone. I have a great team. Jeff is always here helping me produce this podcast and produce everything in my business. But in reality, like, I'm still here as making the decisions, ideating, and all of these things. I need to push myself to reach out to others. That isn't one of my natural abilities. But when I do invite others to co-create with me or even just to connect with me, for example, like just friending others on Facebook is something that it's a really hard thing for me to do. And so then I rely on people friending me when I need to push forward and invite others into my circle. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself clearly, because when I do extend the invitation, when I do reach out to people, normally those friendships are so well aligned, and it just takes me doing that extra bit of stretch that really is so uncomfortable, but it helps me, and it helps me embody that North Node energy. So curious for you, Elisa, what comes up for you that you need to embody about that energy of your North Node? Michelle asks, how do I use my nodal energy to activate those who need to work with me and to wake the F up? Well, I don't think our nodes exactly work like that. But by expressing our North Node and really understanding again what our North Node is, the more alignment we will be. And I'm a full believer that the more we are aligned with our natal energies, not just our nodes, the more we become magnets, that we become more in tune with our natal energies. And the more in tune we get, the more our energy amplifies. So, Michelle, knowing your North Node, knowing the placement of that North Node, and really stretching into that place. And just by default, your ideal customers will feel your vibration and come to you. Jillian asks, How do lunar nodes work with regards to business and tapping into the best energies while balancing out the opposite ones? Yeah, again, this is like awareness, right? You have to be aware of the energies that your North Node wants you to stretch and grow into. And the balancing out is just noticing that if you just keep on getting stuck in past patterns. So, again, going with my past example with my South Node in the first house in Gemini, I have a past pattern of providing too much information, of talking too much, of doing it all on my own. And so I have to be really mindful and catch myself, right? I can't just be working in a bubble and just in my own head and just doing things willy-nilly. It's about reflecting and being mindful of past patterns that I can fall back into and my North Node energies that I need to stretch into. All right, and last question from Amanda says, what types of products should I create that would best serve my clients based on my North Node qualities? Well, I hope going through all of the information in this podcast kind of showed you some ideas on how to discern and how to move forward by bringing out those energies based on your North Node zodiac sign and house placement. Before we get into the astrology of the upcoming week of August 29th through September 5th, let me just say that September is a doozy. We have Mars retrograde coming. Mars retrograde is for 10 weeks and it's a personal planet, and it really is highlighting the part of your life that you need to rethink and reaffirm how you're spending your energy, right? Are you getting stressed, or are you finding a lot of frustration? Are your motivations still the same? So I will be hosting a Mars retrograde masterclass on Tuesday, September 8th. So if you are interested in attending this masterclass, we'll of course have chart readings. We will be looking at house by house what's being highlighted for you. I'll be giving you some questions to think about for your business and your brand based on this personal planet going backwards in all of our charts, but how is this going to affect you personally? So Mars retrograde masterclass on Tuesday, September 8th. You can go to the Savvy Luminary /Mars to sign up. It's a pay what you can class. Whew. Well, I think that's all I have for you today. I know it's a lot. Find me on Instagram or on Facebook at the Savvy Luminary, where I give more day-to-day astrological events so that you can work with the energies instead of against them in your life and business. Also, if you want a PDF calendar of all of the astro events in September, or a downloadable link for your Google Calendar, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/The Savvy Luminary to get your September calendar. Lastly, remember we have Mars retrograde coming up, and I am hosting a Mars retrograde masterclass on Tuesday, September 8th. Please sign up. It's a pay what you can class. You can find the link at thesavvyluminary.com/Mars. Mahalo for listening to this brand new podcast. If you enjoyed learning about astrology for entrepreneurs, help me spread the word by sharing this podcast with your business besties, and hop over to the Savvy Luminary for links to episode notes and our free Facebook community where you can send me questions about astrology or branding, as well as connect with other like-minded businesses.